pretty confident that by July 1st next year, some individual agent, probably wrapped in a company, goes and raises money at $100 million valuation. Like, there will be funds by the end of next year that are set up to invest in agents because they are creating so much value and able to capture them. So,
welcome to Tokenized, the show focused on stablecoins and the institutional adoption of real-world assets. My name is Cuy Sheffield, head of crypto at Visa, and today we are back for another episode of our Agentic Commerce series. Back again, stepping into Simon's seat today is my co-host, the CEO and founder of Mesh, Bam Azizi. Welcome, Bam. Great to have you back.
Thank you, Cuy, for co-hosting this. I'm excited for this episode.
Awesome. And joining us today is Louis Amira, co-founder and CEO of Circuit Chisel. Awesome to have you here, Louis. How are you doing today?
I am great. Excited to join you guys. My agent didn't join the chat, but that's okay. We'll solve that next time.
All right. So 2 quick bits before we get into the content. I need to remind you that the views or opinions of our contributors today are their own, do not necessarily reflect those of the companies they represent. Nothing we say should be taken as tax, financial, investment, or legal advice. Do your own research. And a reminder, this podcast series is made possible by Mesh and Visa. All right. Let's jump in. Louis, why don't you start by giving us an overview of what you're building? What's the backstory? I think you've got a really interesting history at the intersection of crypto and AI. Like, how did Circuit and Chisel come about?
Yeah, well, thank you guys for having me. We'll try not to make story time too long here. If you rewind the clock way back, I'd worked at Google for a while. Sort of read the Bitcoin white paper, did a bunch of interesting things, but didn't have the full commitment to go make crypto and fintech my full career until many years later. Did some interesting things at Google that might end up becoming relevant. Saw DeepMind up close when they were acquired, watched some of the AlphaGo things happen here and there. Watched a bunch of very smart college and Google friends go to Stripe and was like, man, those Collison guys really know what's going on over there. Ended up working at Chainlink, which was fascinating, which we can come back to. And then joined Stripe the week that Elon Musk bought Twitter, now X, and Stripe launched a crypto payouts partnership with Twitter, which was fascinating to land in the middle of. About a month later, the Terra Luna stablecoin blew up, and I got to write the internal recap on what that was. And then 6 months later, FTX blew up, and I was like, what did I was at Google. What am I doing here at this fintech company and working in this crypto space? Why did I make this my career? And anyways, fast forward a little bit, and to both Patrick and John Collison, Will Gabrick, and a bunch of others credit, they were pretty committed to crypto, actually going all the way back to their investment in Stellar long before I had figured out which way was up. This is 2013, I want to say, accepting Bitcoin here and there. They decided to put a crypto team together because they said there's something happening here. There's something that will be very transformational in terms of what we're trying to do. We should be experimenting with it. We should be at the forefront. That's kind of like the ethos of Stripe, is like, we'll listen to people, but we need to go see for ourselves. And that led to a bunch of interesting conversations, sort of where we all met along the path. 2023, there were a lot fewer tourists wandering around the crypto space. So we had some meaningful conversations. And I think towards the end of 2023 and into early 2024, companies like Bridge and a handful of others, like the Mesh folks, like, you were building things that actually allowed people to do real things. You were separating, as John Collison likes to say. I know we talk, this audience is particularly conversant in Money 2020. So I think his famous metaphor is like walking through the casino to get to the real business at the back. Like, that was 2023 and 2024. Fast forward a bit, 2024, a bunch of things happened that were very positive. We launched Pay with Crypto. We obviously made the Bridge acquisition, and then sort of full steam ahead, and many others in the space. And I would say Congress overall, Trump embracing it. Like, there were a bunch of things that were very positive. Alongside that, to make a much longer story, very slightly longer, I had been working on the AI side of things, running Stripe's AI partnerships for the first bit of its formation, and then exploring what we should be doing. I had been pushing internally saying, hey, if you thought that we were right 2 years ago with stablecoins. Like, I can't express how big of an opportunity AI is. And Stripe was using it for, purposes of making the docs easier to navigate and a handful of other things. End of 2024, I was having some conversations with the leadership team on the partnership side, some of the product folks, looking at like, how do we start projects internally? There's now an experimental bets team at Stripe that didn't exist at that point. The whole premise was there's an intersection between crypto and AI. We actually would argue, this was before agents were like a commonly used term. Agents are going to go out and do a lot more. We need to get out ahead of that. And there was so much low-hanging fruit for Stripe to pick up around the AI space, similar to what was happening on the stablecoin side. My co-founder, David Noel Romas, DNR, hopefully none of the medical people care too much about that nickname, but DNR and I were sort of like, we're not all that interested in grabbing a lot of the low-hanging fruit. We want to go a few years further out on the curve. And that led us to a lot of what we're seeing a lot more of today with all these protocols and some of the things we're starting to build, actually building the agents, doing the interesting things. And if you rewind back to crypto in 2022 and late 22 and early 2023, okay, there are a bunch of tourists, but who's actually doing interesting things? Who's moving volume? Who's building agents? Who's trying to run into these corners? That's a lot of what we've been running into the last handful of months since we left, and we can get more into it. But that's the sort of arc of the company. We left January 2025, so earlier this year. Bunch of great investors, a bunch of great partners. Stripe ended up investing, which was a very cool, sort of surreal experience to go back and them say yes. It complicated things because there was investors were saying we're the Stripe for agents, and I was like, I don't know if this is a good or a bad thing for that. That's not actually what we're trying to do. But anyways, long explanation, but that's sort of what we set out to do. And I would say that the agentic space, while much more hyped, the actual building and utility and all that sort of stuff is still probably back in the 2023 crypto and stablecoin world. Like, we know there's something there. We don't know what it is. There's a lot of people that are enthusiastic, but nothing that we all use on a daily basis or that headlines are written about or any of that sort of stuff, or factual headlines are written about, I should say. So anyways, long intro, but that's the last decade in a nutshell.
So maybe we'll get to what you're doing over. Like, let's pick up with when you started the company. Like, what was the state of agentic commerce and particularly agent-to-agent commerce? And then if you fast forward today, you've got a new protocol being announced, every week. You have X402 now making headlines. You got AP2, Agentic Commerce Protocol. We announced the Trusted Agent Protocol. And so, help ground the audience with like what existed 6 months ago. Was there anything? And like what's happening now? And how do we help make sense of like the different protocols and then where your company and your products, where you fit within that landscape? Are you building another protocol? Are you building products around those protocols? Like, help us unpack that.
Yes. Many questions that can all hopefully be boiled down to a simple one. So roughly a year ago, Anthropic launched the Model Context Protocol. And that was the first thing that you could shorten that to say, like, agents now have tools. It used to be developers had to go to an API. They had to get it exactly right. If you miss a semicolon or your formatting is wrong, or bad news everywhere. MCPs are much more forgiving. Or the MCP framework, I guess, or protocol is much more forgiving. You can use natural language. You can do a bunch of different things to package things up in tools and go from there. The original insight was, wow, these tools are going to be really interesting for agents to be able to discover and then pay for. Agents don't have the ability to go out and express their identity. They don't have the ability to pay for discovery is one problem, but they couldn't go out and access any of these tools. So end of last year, or as we were forming this thesis and leaving, there are now agents. There are now tools, really interesting. How are we going to all go figure out what these tools are? How are we going to recognize them? How are we going to pay for them? To us, it was obvious that it was going to be stable coins because you need very low transaction fees if you're going to be paying 2 cents for a thing or 5 cents for a thing or 10 cents for a thing. I think the Visa folks and everybody else could get into a lot more depth on batching and all sorts of other things that make this possible moving forward. But to my small brain, it was, all right, well, stable coins, like smaller transactions, this will make sense. So dozens of people had similar ideas. They were all sort of aggregated at specific companies. Coinbase ended up launching something maybe 2 months after we left Stripe to start working on a lot of this stuff. That was the X402 protocol. We can get into specifically what the X402 protocol is, but for folks that have ever seen the 404 little dinosaur in Chrome, like this page doesn't exist, or the if you really geek out, you can go into the 200s, the 400s, all these other things. There's these little sort of like things that agents will write at or I guess servers and clients will end up writing at the top of the paper to make sure that things are working properly. Gross oversimplification, but the broader point is like it's a way for everybody to be literally on the same page and expressing what needs to happen. We were like, oh, that's an interesting start. Nobody cared for probably 4 months, and Coinbase talks about this. I think they launched in March or May or something like that, and literally nobody cared. Kind of the same as MCP when it first launched for that first month or two. We were sitting there going, okay, we were doing a thing kind of like X402. Maybe we don't need to work on X402. We had some, I would say, and Coinbase is an investor in us, so I should be maybe more careful than I am in saying this. Like we had some concerns. We had some incentive misalignment concerns. We were like, Coinbase doing this, in theory, if it takes off, others will want to expand and make this more neutral and all that. If they don't, this is a great way for Coinbase to start charging money and make sure that it's USDC on base and all the value accrues to them, which I don't think is a cynical way of breaking it down. But going back to the 90s, that's exactly how the modern browser ended up working. There was a group in Minnesota, they were going to charge, and then Tim Berners-Lee and CERN, and hey, HTTP is the free way to do it. And luckily for all of us, HTTP ended up working out. Ad businesses got kicked off, but that's a whole other tangent. So anyways, getting back to like March to April and May, our observation was, okay, well, Coinbase is going to do a thing. We'll just say based on who we've known for the last bunch of years, like it was pretty obvious others were going to do their version of this. And we're like, if there end up being 3 or 4 or 6 or 15 different protocols, like we kind of need them all to work well together. I don't think Coinbase launching something is going to stop Stripe from working with OpenAI to launch ACP. I don't think any of them are going to scare Visa out of launching the Trusted Agent Protocol. I don't think that's going to stop MasterCard or Amex or anybody else from launching their own thing. And the worst world would be we have 15 of these different little kingdoms and they can't really you can't travel freely between them. So our approach, which ties back into my background in the partnerships world and my entire career, as well as DNR, my co-founder, was sort of like, is there a layer above or below all of this that can enable everybody else? And everybody should have go on whatever path they want. If something is strictly better, it's faster, it's safer, it's more comprehensive, whatever, like great, everything should default in that direction. But we need a neutral way where all of this is low cost, low friction, whatever, for that to work. And people looked at us like, that's not a business. It's like an open source project. You're like giving things away for free. And we're like, yes, it's not your job to ask us how we make money off of this. It's our job to deliver a product that actually works and goes from there. So we can get into each of the individual protocols, but the parent company, Circuit Chisel, that we created, ATXP was, I hesitate to call it another protocol. I mean, it is by definition, but the aim is to be compatible with absolutely everything so that there's an easier front door to walk through to get access to all of the other protocols down the line. So we hope they all fit in. We have a hunch that if Solana launched a competing one to Coinbase, or if Adyen launched a competing one to Stripe, they might not play nicely together in the short term. And we think it's our job to go try and make them easier to navigate and interoperate.
Yeah, I was going to say, Bam, how do you think about all this from your seat at Mesh? And particularly, it's interesting if someone talks about, okay, for agentic payments, you could use fiat rails or you could use stablecoin rails. But then stablecoin rails, it's not monolithic. It's, okay, which stablecoin, which blockchain. And so you could then have a bunch of fragmentation around different standards that are focused and optimized for one or the other. Like, how do you look at kind of the crypto ecosystem trying to fit into this use case?
Yeah, so fragmentation is a dear topic to me. So I keep talking about fragmentation. I'm glad that Louis is doing what Louis is doing, because we don't want another fragmentation on the protocol side, because we already have enough wallets and exchanges and different networks, different tokens, different stable issuers. And I wish that we were living in a world that everything was HTTP. That's it, right? But it's not the case. And I think that's one thing. The second part is the user experience, right? Fragmentation directly changes how you build for users and how the user experiences the technology. And I think if you really want the next billion users to join this momentum, both in crypto and also in the AI agent, you need to make it as dumb as possible, as easy as possible, so everyone can be able, like the barrier should be lowered as much as possible so anyone can use it. So I call it the grandma test. So if you have a piece of technology, if your grandma cannot use it, then throw it to the trash can, because you're not going to get adoption from the majority of the users. So I'm really curious about how, like, that neutrality that you mentioned, Luis, like if Coinbase is doing or Stripe is doing, is this something that PayPal is going to use that, or Adyen is going to use that, or how you can build that community around it? Because we are like, it's super painful on the crypto side of it. And I will tell you after you mentioned this about like how we are solving it on the crypto and the stablecoin side. But I want to hear your opinion about like how this neutrality will be formed around Coinbase X402.
So Coinbase started X402. You need a couple Coinbase specific things, the Coinbase developer platform, when you get into facilitators and all of that, which they've been pretty vocal that they are going to move out into a foundation. They're moving it in with Cloudflare. They're talking with a bunch of others. I think they announced something specific with Cloudflare. And we know the Cloudflare folks quite well. Like if you look at our funding announcement, the CEO of Cloudflare was speaking about us. So we know, I would say, both sides of the equation, and really respect and hope that that's the direction things go sooner rather than later, because it would be nice to have more folks around the table to say, you know what, we all agree. We shouldn't have 15 different protocols. Maybe X402 in its current iteration is not necessarily like the perfect one. There's a V2 that they're working on. Hey, by V4, whether you're Tether or Stripe with Tempo or Bridge or Privy, thinking about other wallets, like none of this should actually matter to the people that are going out and trying to create agents, let alone all of the like fintech infrastructure that they should not care about. Like people that sell rubber ducks go to Shopify to sell rubber ducks. They don't go to find out like, well, who's the best payment processor? Is that a Stripe thing? Like which cards should I accept? Do I take crypto? Like they don't actually care. And our aspiration, or the reason that we left, was there's a bunch of things that need to be packaged up and put sort of in a bit of a black box, or an easier to access thing, hidden to some extent from the users that actually want to go build agents or vibe code things on Lovable. So like luckily OpenAI and Lovable and Cursor and basically everybody out there is trying to lower the bar so that it's easier and easier to build these agents. We think that it should be easier and easier to not care about all of the things behind the scenes in terms of what the different protocols are. So I would say our grand vision is we need to be careful because we have a bunch of investors that are all the different blockchains. Like our whole point is we want everybody to we more or less created this foundation that they're aiming for kind of intentionally on our side, because we want to say we are not going to favor a specific blockchain. We're not going to favor a specific wallet or stablecoin or any of that sort of stuff. Like we want them all to flow freely, to the extent that Visa is tokenizing cards and it's the cheapest, best way to do it. And that's more competitive than using USDC on Base. Like the end developer and consumer down the line, and eventually another agent that's getting paid by an agent, like they absolutely don't care how the money shows up. Can it get here quickly? Can it get here with no fee? Can it land in the thing that I want? Like, great. I don't actually need to care about most of that stuff. And anyways, that's our sort of opinionated take. Like the technology is now there to enable each of these things to happen. And I think Zach had said on the Zach Abrams from Bridge had said on the podcast, like anybody that has money at rest should be thinking about stable coins, and they're probably going to be opinionated about who gets the interest. Okay, I mean, great. The interest should eventually get shared back with whoever is holding those dollars at any point in time. And we can speed things up along the way. And that's kind of, again, the ethos. Like there's a lot more resistance in the system than there should be, friction and resistance in the system than there should be. And we're trying to remove it. So hopefully that's a somewhat non-answer to your question, because it's not entirely clear to us how we work with Google with their very early AP2, which like kind of talks about X402, but also mentions FedNow in the next sentence, and like talks about PIX and UPI. And we're sort of like, all right, well, I guess they're kind of heading in the same direction. But anyways, we're working with everybody to try and understand their protocols to fit them better together, understand them and fit them better.
As much as like many of these protocols are designed to be somewhat payment method agnostic or blockchain agnostic, like in principle, and it seems like it's going to take time for like what that looks like. Isn't it fair to say that some of the protocols seem more focused on specific use cases than others? When I think about a lot of the work that we've done at Visa, it's been very much on like agentic commerce in the context of a consumer delegating access to an agent to purchase something at a merchant. And that's where like we think that there's a ton that we can do with agent friendly cards and tokenized credentials and like all these things. Then there's a whole nother set of use cases that are like B2B agent to agent transactions of a developer like buying a resource, like very, very different than a consumer booking travel. And so do you see the protocols optimizing for or being better designed for certain use cases than others? And then as you look at what you're building in AXTP, like what are the specific use cases that you're looking to solve for, particularly in the early days that you think will be the most relevant? And like what are the capabilities that you think are going to be important for those use cases?
Yeah, even the nature, like the essence of that question is like, I think to take a step back, and probably all the listeners are thinking the same thing. Like, I don't actually interact with any agents on a daily basis, whether it's at work, whether it's at home. We could define agents, and there's a bunch of competing definitions, but most people think about their agent as ChatGPT. Maybe if you're a power user, you're talking about Claude and Anthropic, and you have Gemini and all this other stuff. But like your agents aren't actually doing anything today. They don't exist really. There's a bunch of developers over the last few months that are creating them, and we're trying to figure out what they're used for. A lot of what people call agents are really just workflows that are a little bit smarter because AI is like there's GPT-5 plugged in behind them. What we are doing is we're actually trying to build agents on our own. So we have a few engineers. We rapidly prototype a bunch of things. We use them for things internally. We have some pilots going with public companies that I can't really get too far into. But the whole point is like, what are your problems? Can we actually solve them? Whether they're an agent or a web app or any number of different form factors doesn't actually matter. What we view as the future is that at some point you're probably going to start to think about them more like another human you work with or collaborator or whatever else it might be. And to answer your specific question, I think you were asking something along the lines of like, well, why is Google doing ACP and their demo was buying a refrigerator from Lowe's, and we've got other B2B ones that are like invoice factoring, and like how do those work? And the honest answer is like we haven't actually, like we go to these hackathons, we try and help people in building things. We talk with individual companies and we're like, well, what have you done? And they're like, wow, we haven't done anything. We've read the blog posts. Okay. Well, then we'll go to, I won't incriminate any particular big companies, but we're like, well, what are you using them for internally? And it's like, oh, well, we like book our travel faster. And it's sort of like, okay, can we collectively look at your P&L together and figure out where you spend a bunch of money? We could do interesting things like look at how many subscriptions you have to Bloomberg and like try and cut half of them or something like that. But it's much more interesting to say, what are some things on the bottom of your product roadmap that you can't get to? Can we use Devin or Codex or Cloud Code, whatever, to vibe code some of that stuff into existence and see how that goes? So it's not, my suspicion is that many of these protocols originated from each of the companies to solve slightly different things that are specific to them. And Stripe and OpenAI is a good one to pick on because we have angels and investors at both, and we like both of them. I gave both sides a bit of grief after Stripe and OpenAI announced it. I was like, you realize that was really just instant checkout. Like you deleted a couple screens and like more or less that was a human driving an LLM to find some products and then remove the checkout. Like it's going to be much better. I'm like, I don't doubt whatever is going on back there. I just don't think that meets the bar for agentic commerce. Like it wasn't an agent sending me a text message with some products saying, hey, is it good? React with the green emoji and iMessage, and that's the checkout. Like that's the world we expect to come. And Stripe knows this, OpenAI knows this. Like there's some steps, there's some fruit to grab that's sort of low on the way there. But these tools are so new and not many people have actually built agents yet that I don't know that these protocols are actually close to their final form. They're just close to wherever that particular entity had a right to win, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So can I summarize this and then Bam, like I want your take on like how you see these pieces fitting together. But I remember when we talked, when you came by our office a few months ago, Liz, there's this idea that resonated a lot to me of you have a bunch of people building protocols for agents and infrastructure for agents. But one of the problems is the agents don't exist yet. Like they're not real.
You have
it's just
20 stores You have 20 stores selling pickaxes and shovels around gold mines, and there's nobody walking into the stores. And we're like, wait a second.
It's very hard to design a protocol for an agent if you've never built an agent. And then as agents emerge, there's also the question of, okay, like whoever builds the agent, how do you go and convince them to use your protocol versus someone else? And so if I understand correctly, like the strategy of the company has been you have a protocol, but then you're not waiting and just going out trying to convince other agents to use your protocol. You want to actually build the agents yourself to demonstrate how the protocol is going to work and to bootstrap the protocol. And so, can I think about like the company is like the protocol is open source, and then there's like a dev shop to like build agents that add value to it, and like how you see those worlds, coming together, and like you think you actually need agents, to exist, to even figure out what the protocol should do with it.
100%. I would. I've been long-winded with a bunch of answers, so I'll shorten them up. We started off very early in our journey, just rapidly prototyping, using all the different protocols. Not protocols. None of them existed. We were using Lovable. DNR, my co-founder, was using Cursor. He was building them the right way. I was vibe coding them on Replit and Lovable and every other thing under the sun because I'm slightly less technical, but also more indicative of the mass market. And I went, man, these things are getting a lot better, but they still can't. I can't go generate an image or a video on Google's Veo video model without creating a Google account, getting an API key, all of that. And like, that shouldn't happen. I want to make a music video for my son's birthday party. Like, I should just be able to ask my Replit or Vercel or whatever agent to go do this. And like, it couldn't for a bunch of reasons. We ended up building our protocol. X402 got launched. We ended up getting funding because people were like, this is an amazing protocol. You guys are onto it. And we're like, I don't really know that the protocol is the thing that necessarily makes a bunch of money in the grand scheme. Okay, sure. If you want us to go pursue that, we go fast forward a few more months. It plays out that everybody has a protocol. And we're like, great, this is the outcome we wanted. Can we go back to what we were saying, which is we want to be the layer that connects all of them. And then let's take advantage of being early. We're going to go out and build agents. We're going to run some pilots. We're going to probably make some money running the pilots. And then, by the way, if we find agents that are actually worthwhile, any one of those, here's a hot take for everybody. I am pretty confident that by July 1st next year, some individual agent, probably wrapped in a company, goes and raises money at $100 million valuation. Like, there will be funds by the end of next year that are set up to invest in agents because they are creating so much value and able to capture them. So anyways, I think you summarized it quite well in saying like, there's a protocol. We are investing in the protocol. We want there to be at least one neutral one that interacts with everything and plays nicely with everybody else. And we currently think we're the only one that's actually all the way there. It leverages X402. It plugs in, is compatible with everything else. But in the meantime, before any developers show up at the party, like, we should just be building them ourselves, which is what we've been doing all along and are spending even more time on.
Bam, are you buying that prediction? Agents are going to be raising money directly next year? Like, how do you look at all this?
Not next year, but maybe next 5 years. But maybe Andreessen Horowitz has a different plan, but I don't know. Maybe Louis has insider take. But anyways, I want to talk a little bit about like where you draw the line in terms of like when you want to basically monetize a protocol, when it needs to be neutral and free. So we know that like opening in nonprofit doesn't help. Like, look at OpenAI, right? It was nonprofit, now it's for profit, with all the discussion around it. But like, how can Louis Amira or Amira create something that basically is widespread, adopted by the industry, by people who are using agents or building agents, but at the same time, you can build a for-profit and make money out of it? Like, where you draw the line?
So I think there's a bunch of services, and this is the brilliance of Coinbase. They have the facilitators. I explained it to somebody else yesterday, grossly oversimplifying. Like, that is escrow. Like, you should have escrow on a bunch of these transactions. Like, okay, I'm going to give you, especially as the dollar amounts go up, okay, I'm going to give you the $1,000 for the whatever thing, but like, I kind of need to be sure that you're going to bring that thing back. I don't want to just send $1,000 for a flight that turns out like that wasn't actually the Delta giving me the flight or the seat back, or I bought the couch, whatever. I think people understand that circumstance. So that's going to cost some money. Okay. How do chargebacks end up working if you're not happy with the quality? Who's the right network? If you're a new merchant or a new agent, like, how do you go get any of that trust? Should you be able to deal with high dollar amount transactions or high volume transactions? This is where I think the Visas and everybody else of the world I don't want to put too many words in Kai's mouth, but they're a technology company more so than a financial oriented company. Like they provide value added services through technology. And I think there's absolutely that same right to win here. If you're asking if that's something that we're trying to chase, I would say that ATXP like might have a right to play in that world. I don't think we're trying to go out and figure out what the best wallet setup is, or should we be doing hosting of individual agents? Should we be making the passport equivalent? Should we be building escrow? Like we want to have a very easy place for others to plug into and build. And there should just be far more transactions out there. Like we want it to be agent builders, not protocol builders, I think is the way of putting it. So we are not out here trying to make a $10 billion protocol. I think we're trying to go out and make it to where agents are easier to build. We have some ideas about the platform we're using and creating in service of building our own agents. We think that's really valuable. And we can get into some of the pieces of that. Some of it are still a bit confidential, but if there are more agents that are more freely able to transact, we suspect we will be able to monetize that a bunch of different ways in terms of the agents we create. But we think that the cost of a lot of that sort of stuff to just send something between two known entities should be very low. Discovery, reputation, all of that starts to cost more money. And that's where I think a bunch of others are going to innovate and play.
Makes sense.
Yeah, but before we move on, let's hear from the sponsors that make the series possible.
This episode, if it isn't already obvious, is sponsored by our friends at Visa, the leader in digital payments. Visa's Tokenized Asset Platform, or VTAP, uses smart contracts and cryptography to help banks bring fiat currencies on-chain, whether it's launching a stablecoin or deposit tokens or something else. VTAP allows financial institutions to issue fiat-backed tokens, improving financial efficiency and enabling programmable finance. Check out the links in this episode's description to express your interest in VTAP. This episode is brought to you by Mesh, the first global crypto payments network. Connecting over 300 wallets, exchanges, and payments platforms, Mesh enables anyone to pay and get paid instantly anywhere in any asset. Mesh makes digital transactions seamless, secure, and universal, fueling the next era of agentic commerce. Learn more at meshpay.com/AI.
Louis, X402, it's been hot lately. It seems like the past few weeks, I remember I was talking about it a few weeks ago, and it was just like very theoretical. I'm like, it's the story of the original sin of the internet. And then, like, it's an interesting story, but then you look at the data, and all the data is public because it's on chain, and you're like, there's been $500 the last week. There's like nobody's like actually using this thing. Then all of a sudden, the usage explodes. I think there have been multiple days that have been 500K plus in volume a day. Shout out to Merit Systems, X402 Scan, amazing resource to kind of follow what's happening in real time. Like, what happened? Where did the excitement and enthusiasm come from? What's driving the growth of X402 now? And like, how do you separate some of the noise from signal and like real things that are being built that give us a view into like what some of the use cases will be in agentic flows?
I don't know what the initial spark was. I have some suspicions. I would say it works. It is easier to get a facilitator up and running. Like there is a lot of Coinbase developer platform work behind the scenes. That org that has been put back together, reconstructed under Brian, Eric, and Alec, and a bunch of others that are amazing over there building it. Like they have a thing that works well, and they know it works well. They have a bunch of very excitable crypto folks that if there's a chance to make money, we'll go figure out how to make money off of it. A lot of it was meme coin driven stuff. Some of the early demos and things they talked about at hackathons were very cool. You go ping an API and you get back ping tokens. I would just say like broader crypto Twitter very quickly took over because it was very reminiscent of like the ICO boom and some of the, we'll call them altcoins because I don't remember what this podcast is allowed to say a little while ago. A lot of enthusiasm behind it. It caused a bunch of conversations. We went and built more on X402 ourselves. So we're actually, I don't know when this is going to be released, but At some point the last 2 weeks, we were at the top of the 24-hour, 7-day, all of those different charts, because we had actually set something up to where developers could come. How deep do I want to get into this? They could come end up getting tokens on our platform at a slight discount. So like if you're going to end up making images and videos and LLM credits, we were like, hey, you know what? We want to show people how this works. We want to use X402. We want to support the volume. We very quickly were at the top of the leaderboard because people were like, oh, wait, this is kind of an arbitrage. It's like, well, yeah, that's the whole point of this. So we, to some extent, contributed to a different version of the meme coin trend. We like to think that we were doing it by giving people discounts. Sorry, investors, like we use a little bit of your money to give away, like dollars for 97 cents or whatever it ended up being. But it played out exactly. I don't want to put words in Brian Armstrong's mouth because I think he does a great job of speaking on his own. But I have a lot of respect for their team's ability to say, if we go get 100 times or 1,000 times the traffic and eyeballs on this thing, tens of eyeballs might actually end up going and building the real thing, the use cases that actually matter. We might be able to get the merchants talking about it. And we've been in some rooms where it's like there are very legitimate, I don't want to give away any companies, but like very legitimate folks thinking about this now, not because they've seen any volume. They know that a bunch of it's meme coins, but they're like, it seems like it now works. So we should take it seriously, especially if everything coalesces around X402. And our approach is like, yes, we are landing on something that works. Let's not forget the second half of that, which is make sure that it supports all of the blockchains, all of the tokens. And Coinbase has not said that they will, what's the positive way of putting this? They have said that they intend to do that. I do believe that they are going to do that. I think the ecosystem is going to more or less require it as the foundation gets set up and they need to play nice with everybody. There's a ton of initial volume. I don't want people to go out and lose money. I think we said at the start, this was not financial advice. My advice would be to not go necessarily buy some of these meme coins because I don't think X402 is a buyable thing. So maybe that is financial advice. But the broader point is there's a lot of eyeballs, a lot of excitement. It works, which is amazing. Now let's like take it from working to working for everybody. And that's what we're trying to like gently nudge and contribute and help and all of that way. Hopefully in saying that it does work and it's amazing.
Yeah, Bam, you've been in crypto for a while. Like we've seen this story before. Is this another like Solana in many ways, meme coins helped to bootstrap the chain, led to it hardening, led to the growth of Phantom. Now it's going into more stablecoin institutional use cases. Like, when you see something like a flurry of like speculation, like how do you look at it as like a crypto builder? Like, is there like an interesting arc where that could turn into utility?
Yeah, I think these little sparks, I would call it, could potentially ignite a bigger movement, right? I think both me and Louis, we believe that the future is agentic. There is way more things to do than just market arbitrage and making some money here and there. But you really need some financial incentive to bring more eyeballs and more attention to the industry. And I think what they did is absolutely smart, and that hopefully ignites a bigger movement. I personally believe that we will have 5 billion users or human connected to the internet as of today, but we will have 500 billion agents. And humans, they interact like twice a day. Agents will interact like maybe 200 times a day with each other. And what e-commerce did to commerce, Agentic Commerce will do like 1,000x bigger type of, is going to be 1,000x bigger catalyst for the whole economy. And I'm personally excited to see where crypto comes into that picture of helping Agentic Commerce to become a bigger thing. X402 is one of the tools, but it's not all of it. There are more that we can do on that end. But I'm very curious to understand, or maybe the audience to understand, why agents need to do microtransactions, right? Because that's, I think, where crypto comes in. So if you have to pay like a half a cent, how you want to pay it, like you want to pay with your Visa card or you want to wire it, it really doesn't work with the traditional type of financial services. You have to use crypto and a stablecoin, especially because it's cross-border. Like one agent from Philippines wants to talk with another agent in Colombia. They can't really use their local currencies or even US dollar because it takes time. These are like real-time type of transactions. But why agents need microtransactions? Maybe Louis can share some insight on that end.
Well, some of the first ones we built were, I think many people that are maybe AI ninjas will have gone the minute ChatGPT launched deep research. They were like, okay, I'm meeting with this person tomorrow. Tell me everything about them. It's almost the same as going and like Googling yourself once upon a time. Like, what does Google know about me? Go ask ChatGPT to go come back with a deep research report and then grade it. One of the first things we built, this is many months ago at this point, was can we go get a better version of that produced? So if ChatGPT gave you a C+, if you guys were doing the background research on me, what's his background? What did he do? Maybe it gives you a C+. Can you go make an agent that is an A- version of that? Okay, well, how would you do it? There are some paywalled articles. There are some YouTube videos. There's some podcasts that I've been on. There's a bunch of stuff that like either you need to pay for an individual article. This is what Cloudflare has been working on, and with Papercrawl's a different thing, but the ability to be able to pay for an individual article is there, I think, what they would like to see in the world. And I think the content folks like eventually will agree that that is a really interesting world where you have 500 billion agents and they all go spend 10 cents reading an article. It's a much bigger business than all the subscribers of everybody else. If you're trying to go learn about me, you probably need to go read some articles that might be paywalled. You might have an agent go out and listen to 5 hours of podcasts or watch 5 hours of videos. You could have ChatGPT do it. They're basically paying the 5 cents in the background for all of the servers and everything else they're using. If they could hand that task off to another agent that's the best podcast distiller and YouTube video watcher or whatever, you might end up in a world where somebody creates that agent. It comes out of your ChatGPT balance, would be fascinating. Great, 10 cents, go off, watch all the content. Yep, sounds good as part of this deep research report. It's unclear to me whether OpenAI creates a wallet off to the side of your existing subscription, or they kick that out to you and say, well, you have a wallet, you go use that and pay the 10 cents and like approve it. We suspect it's more the latter, but there's no reason it couldn't be the former. And to us, it doesn't actually matter. There's some developer out there that built an amazing agent that allows you to go consume other content, plug that into the deep research side of it, and that person, probably human, but maybe agent that created the deep research agent, got paid 10 cents. It only cost them 7 cents, and they made 3 cents on that transaction or that deep research report. If there are 1 billion deep research reports being run every week, like that is a massive business. And that's where I come back to the point about agents getting funded with $100 million valuations. Like we have built early versions of that, but we can't go read Bloomberg or anything else because Bloomberg doesn't have an option for us to pay 2 cents to read a Bloomberg article. So there's still a bunch of that adoption, tying it all back together with X402. If not just X402, if Stripe and ACP or anybody else is out there getting more merchants and tools and APIs payable in this pay-per-use world, that's what we're really advocating for, and we have been advocating for the last year. Not really because we're going and trying to make a bunch of money off of it. We think everybody will benefit, but because we need that to build the agents that we want to see in the world. The only people that take us seriously in building agents are people that are payments people. They're like, you don't know anything about anything else. Just tell us how to do the payment side. And we're like, okay, fine. Like, we're trying to get to this destination. Like, we'll tell you about the payment side, but we're really just trying to get into that destination. So anyways, that's one of many, many different use cases. I mentioned deep research, but the same thing applies for if you're trying to get a workout plan together. Like you could get the free one, or somebody out there might make a better version of an agent that is able to read more of the latest medical research or can access MyFitnessPal and do nutrition tracking. Like all those little things you're not going to pay $500 for once. You're probably going to pay per workout or per deep research report, anything like that. And that's where the micropayments make a lot more sense. It's a lot more composable.
Do you see micropayments being done with TradFi or more on the stablecoin side?
I would imagine that more TradFi folks accept that crypto is like there's the difference should be in name, not really in practice. Like I think more of the TradFi folks, if there are TradFi folks that are not using crypto rails, like somebody should go talk to them, find out like what rock they've been living under.
They should be listening to the show. That's what they should be doing.
Unfortunately, we have the echo chamber of all of the people that are in the know. There are people out there that have no idea that any of this exists. But no, I have a hard time. I mean, this is, candidly what I talked with folks like Cuy about. I'm like, how do you view this vision, like this version of the world? And I did the same thing at Stripe 2 and 3 years ago. It was like, we have this crazy set of ideas of what might be coming. And I think people on their side were very correct in saying like, none of this has taken off. Why would we invest in that now? Similar to the agent side. I think if you're a merchant and you hear this X402 pitch, or you hear us come in and say, you should make your API or stored discoverable from ATXP, and they're like, how many agents are going to show up to buy anything? And the answer is like, well, we're working on some. We hope others make some. They're very right to sit on the sidelines, but I suspect in short order, and this is why I have a lot of respect for what Coinbase and others are doing, this meta, it is in the crypto Twitter timeline, when there are better agents, and why I hope one of these $100 million agents happen, is because the second somebody gets funded with a $100 million agent, more VCs go out there and fund more of them. It's like that first big iPhone app. Like you got a bunch more iPhone developers when being an iPhone developer turns out it could actually be a lifestyle, a business and a lifestyle. So anyways, it'll be interesting to hear how this ages over the next 12 months and 24 months. But it's a lot of, we are very close to having all the pieces. I think all the pieces do work. Now it's just kind of people appreciating that they do work and getting the right use cases rolled out.
Yeah. My starting point on this in your question, Bam, is I think all these things end up coexisting. And like that's how things usually work, where there will be transactions that are end-to-end in fiat. That could be a Visa tokenized credential that is a consumer spending at a merchant, or an agent that accepts a card. There will be transactions that are stablecoin end-to-end, where the consumer, the buyer, has a wallet and they're paying to a merchant who directly accepts stablecoins. And then there are going to be these interesting hybrids where, what if you have a consumer who has a wallet on one side and they're trying to pay a micropayment to a merchant who doesn't even know what a stablecoin is? Or what if you have a merchant that's accepting a stablecoin, but the consumer doesn't want to have to buy it? Well, like you need to have all of these things just work. And I think that there'll be many different flows there. The other thing I'm interested in, Louis, want to check, like the way that I've thought about like X402 specifically is, while the vision is that this is an agentic protocol, and at some point, what the examples you walk through of your agent's going to go out and do a research report, and it's going to have to pay for other tools. Is there an argument that it becomes just another way that developers buy software? Because isn't one of the other value propositions like killing the API key? And I thought that marketing from Coinbase is really interesting. Of traditionally, if you are coding up a project in your Cursor environment, and you need some paid service, whatever that paid service is, you usually have to leave that environment. You have to go sign up, create an account, put a payment method on file. You have to grab an API key. You have to then bring that back into Cursor. And so there's this dance kind of going back and forth, where it is interesting to think about this idea of like a headless checkout, that you're inside Cursor the whole time. You could then discover, get access to some paid software, and it's your wallet that is the API key. You never have to leave the environment. And so even if it is like a developer clicking buttons, it's not a agent autonomously going out and like sorting and executing a transaction. Is it fair to say, do you see a market where just B2B software could be purchased and consumed, where the wallet is an API key? And like, is that going to come before some of the agentic stuff? Are you building for that? Like, how do you see that use case? It's not even necessarily like an agent.
Well, it's actually, so it's not just limited to B2B. There's a consumer version of this, and I'll make 2 points here. Hopefully I don't forget when we come back to the Vercel V0 lovable vibe code version of this. But the first version, to answer your question, the original name that we had for ATXP, this was before X402. This was, I think, in our pitch docs and all that sort of stuff, dating all the way back to January when we first left. We called it Pay MCP. And I talked about MCP and all that sort of stuff at the beginning. It was, I'm a developer. I don't really care about APIs. I don't really care about API keys. Or developers care about APIs. I am a vibe coding equivalent person. I just want the image. I just want the video. I just want the whatever else. Companies were setting themselves up to say, hey, we have an MCP server. It's going to be able to do more and more over time. And we were like, great, I'm going to show up in an MCP server and I'm going to pay the MCP server. That could happen in Cursor. Eventually, that could happen in a bunch of different places. And it almost abstracts away the fact there is an artifact that needs to be delivered. Maybe it's a PDF, maybe it's a video, who knows what it might be. Somebody needs to pay. So our assumption is that basically every human out there, and eventually agent, is going to have a crypto wallet. Whether they know it or not, it's a different point, but they're going to be equipped with a crypto wallet. They will then be able to pay for things. And when merchants can assume that the human and the agent shows up with a wallet, they're going to probably think more about accepting crypto by default. Like they want the lowest fee option. So if you assume both of those things are true, we had set up saying these MCP servers are going to see a lot more traffic. We should make them payable. X402 hell of a lot better branding than PayMCP. So kudos to them. Like, yeah, take the protocol that was meant for payments and like slap an X on it. And now it should have been 0x402, but that's a different point. So we jettisoned PayMCP when we were sort of like, okay, well, that's actually the right way to do exactly what you just described. Don't need API keys, all of that. We should just rely on X402 for a lot of that sort of stuff. We built our own implementation, but for all of that discovery, and what I think you're describing is pay-per-use consumption, or token-based billing is how a lot of people are now talking about it in Stripe and other lands. That's very helpful for developers. You don't need to go create accounts. Okay, I'm going to use this database once, so I have to go create an account, do the $20 a month. This is dumb. Can't I just pay for the 9 cents that I need from whatever your service is this one time? So yes, on the developer side. Coming back to the second point on the consumer side, or prosumer, how we think about it in terms of vibe coding, to take a very specific example, if you've ever gone to Replit or Lovable or one of these places and you've been vibe coding for 5 minutes and it's like you ran out of tokens, you need to pay $20 to upgrade. That's I understand why there's an upgrade path. I understand why they need to like throw the roadblock in front of you and get you to convert. But if I said, listen, if your tokens cost 3 cents, I'm willing to pay 9 cents. I don't care. Mark it up. Make money off of me for every token. Let me just keep going until I've convinced myself that I am now in a position where I actually want to pay you $20 a month or whatever. That works for Lovable. That works for Netflix. That works for every other entity out there. Netflix is maybe a bad example because you actually want something where you might only ever interact with this service once. Assume I have a wallet. Assume I'm good for it. We'll pay as we go. I'll give you the 10 cents, 50 cents, whatever. Please don't make me give you $20. I think it's actually much bigger than the B2B side of things. And that's where that demand is already there. And that's the initial use case. When you assume that every site is payable with one of these protocols, that's when you can build much more powerful agents, because you don't have to interrupt the human nearly as often to go approve some transaction, pull out their card, any of this other stuff. So it's all intertwined. 12 months from now, or maybe to Bam's point, a little overeager. 60 months from now, we'll look back at this and be like, nobody should have ever cared about these parts of it. But we need to overcome these gaps to get to the point where you're actually able to do some of the more interesting puzzle piece connecting that we're talking about.
It's fascinating. We could talk about this for hours. Unfortunately, we're out of time. Thank you so much for listening. Bam, where can people find out more about you?
Yeah, you can find me at Bam Azizi Mesh on X, or go to meshpay.com, or our Twitter handle is meshpay. Love to talk to people like Louis Amira more about agentic commerce, crypto, stablecoin. We'd love to hear from you.
Awesome. And Louis, what about you?
My Twitter is easy, or X is easy. It's just at Louis Amira or at Louis Amira. I don't discriminate. And then the Twitter account is at ATXP_AI. We're trying to do the handshake to get at ATXP with the Twitter folks. So find us there and come build with us. And we've got plenty of credits for folks that are actually building agents. There's not that many. We're trying to get to all of them. So please call us.
Nice. And you can find me at Cuy Sheffield on X and LinkedIn, and visa.com/crypto. If you haven't already, please subscribe to Tokenized on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. If you enjoyed this and want more, leave us a review. Please, it helps others find the show. Thank you, Bam. Thank you, Louis. Thanks everyone for listening. Bye for now.